Hello everyone, my name is An and this is my place of interest presentation. My place of interest is Death Valley National Park, and I selected this place because this is where the hottest temperature on Earth was ever recorded, and this fact is very interesting to me. Death Valley National Park is located in southeastern California, primarily in Inyo County, with a small part extending into Nevada. Death Valley National Park is geologically known for its extreme features, including its low elevation, tectonic activity, salt flats, and colorful geology. According to the U.S. National Park Service, the oldest rocks in Death Valley National Park formed around 1.7 billion years ago, but the rocks from 500 years ago showcase more of what Death Valley used to be, and it used to be a warm and shallow ocean. This is because limestones and sandstones were discovered in Death Valley. Over time, the sea slowly receded as the land was pushed up by movements deep beneath the Earth's surface. Death Valley lies near the boundary of two tectonic plates. As these plates move, they cause the Earth's crust to fold, fracture, and shift. This process is known as tectonic activity and occurred during the Mesozoic era. The dominant rock type of Death Valley National Park is sedimentary, and the dominant rock is Nguyen dolomite, which is a kind of dolomitic limestone or dolomite. Generally, limestone forms from calcium carbonate, then transformed to dolomite through magnesium-rich waters. For a more specific explanation, as I previously mentioned, Death Valley used to be a warm and shallow ocean, and scientists arrived at this conclusion because they discovered limestone, which is a sedimentary rock that forms from the remains of marine organisms and minerals in seawater. The shells and skeletons of marine organisms contain calcium carbonate, while seawater contains dissolved calcium and carbonate minerals. As water evaporates, or conditions such as pressure or temperature begins to change, these minerals would form calcite crystals and mix with the remains of the marine organisms. These layers would build up over time, and as the new layers weigh down on the older layers, water would be squeezed out, and the minerals would bind everything together to form limestones. Nguyen dolomite forms from limestone through a process known as dolomitization, in which magnesium replaces the calcium in limestone. This makes dolomite slightly harder and more resistant to erosion. What I thought was interesting about this is the fact that dolomite is slightly altered from limestone through magnesium-rich waters, which provides support for the hypothesis that Death Valley used to be a shallow body of water millions of years ago. I got the picture in the slide from a user called Geology Everywhere on Instagram, and they said that they found this folded marble of Nguyen dolomite in Mosaic Canyon, and it shows the different layers of the rock. Death Valley is located in a seismically active region, but is not as active as other areas in California. It is part of the Basin and Range Province. This is a tectonically active area where the Earth's crust is stretching, which can contribute to seismic activity. The region is also intersected by several significant faults, including the Death Valley Fault and the Armogaza Fault, which can cause earthquakes. I've included the picture of the two faults in the slide. However, Death Valley is less seismically active because it is farther away from major plate boundaries and large fault zones. The region mainly experiences small earthquakes as a result of tectonic stretching. The geological characteristics of Death Valleys, such as deep basins and high mountains, also result in less frequent seismic activity. The strongest earthquake in Death Valley that has been recorded in the past 7 days has a magnitude of 1.6, and the most recent one, which I believe happened in the past 24 hours, had a magnitude of 1. This is a little surprising to me because I've always thought of California as a place with lots of earthquakes and that there are lots of earthquakes everywhere. But after this investigation, I've learned that despite being a seismically active region, different areas in California experiences different amounts of earthquakes, as well as earthquakes with different magnitudes, and that's because of their location as well as their geological characteristics. The dominant process of Death Valley is tectonic extension, and Generally, this process could be explained as when the lithosphere, which is the crust of the Earth, stretches and pulls apart. This would form grabens and horst. As for a more specific explanation, tectonic extension basically occurs when the lithosphere, or the crust of the Earth, stretches and pulls apart as a result of tensional force from the mantle. The core of the Earth is extremely hot, and this heat warms up the mantle, which makes the material near the core expand and becomes less dense. As the material becomes lighter, it rises towards the surface until it reaches the crust of the Earth, and it spreads out horizontally. This would then cause the crust of the Earth to break along normal faults, and some land would move downward, which creates low-lying valleys, known as grabens, like Death Valley, for example, while other land that remains high would become horse, like the Panamint Range, and this range is located next to Death Valley. It is believed that this process began during the Miocene epoch, which happened 17 to 25 million years ago. The Basin and Range province also formed around this period, and Death Valley is part of this province. As the process continued through the Pliocene epoch, the floor of Death Valley deepened, while the surrounding land rose to become mountains. Today, the process is still ongoing, which explains why Death Valley is stretching and becoming wider. The picture in the slide is a photograph of the Badwater Basin. It was taken by William Horton. The Badwater Basin is located in the southern part of Death Valley National Park, and it is known as the lowest place on the North American plate, or in North America. It is over 200 meters below sea level, which suggests that this area has been dropped down. It is surrounded by the Panamint Mountains on one side and the Black Mountains on the other, which suggests that these are the areas that rose up to become mountains, all of which demonstrates that tectonic extension happened in Death Valley. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening to me. The citations are at the end of this slide. I will also be posting this slide along with the video. So if you need to go back to see anything, or if you want to have a look at my citations, it's in there. Thank you again. Bye-bye.